The afternoon sun burned hot over the village of Nkwo. Inside Chief George's big house, 15-year-old Amara scrubbed the floor on her knees, her small hands red and sore. Sweat dripped down her face, but she didn't stop. If she slowed down even for a second, trouble would come. Matilda, her stepmother, stood watching with sharp eyes. Her wrapper was expensive, her jewelry shiny, but her face was twisted in anger. "Look at this dirty floor," Matilda shouted, pointing at a tiny spot Amara had missed. "Are you blind? Scrub it again." Amara quickly wiped the spot, her heart pounding. She had been cleaning since morning, washing clothes, sweeping, cooking, but nothing pleased Matilda. In the sitting room, 13-year-old Daniela, Amara's half-sister, lay on the soft couch, laughing with her friend Kate. Daniela's nails were painted pink, and she wore a new dress, bought just yesterday. "Amara!" Daniela called, waving her hand like a queen. "Come fan me, the heat is annoying." Amara looked at Matilda, who nodded sharply. She had no choice. She picked up the hand fan and stood beside Daniela, waving it slowly. Daniela smirked. "Look at you, sweating like a goat. This is why no one likes you." Kate giggled. "Even your clothes are old. Mine are from city." Amara said nothing. She was used to the insults. Matilda had married Chief George when Amara was only 2 years old. Amara's real mother had died, and within months, Matilda took over the house like a storm. She gave birth to Daniela soon after, and from that day, Amara became a stranger in her own home. George never stopped Matilda's cruelty. He acted like he didn't see the way Amara was treated. If Matilda said, "Amara doesn't deserve food tonight," George would just nod. If Amara cried, he would walk away. Daniela was the golden child, spoiled, loved, given everything. New shoes, new dresses, sweets, toys. And she made sure Amara knew it. "Look what Mama bought me," Daniela would say, twirling in a new dress right in front of Amara. "Too bad you'll never wear something this nice." Worse, Daniela was clever with her wickedness. If she broke a plate, she would scream, "Amara did it!" and Matilda would grab the cane. If she didn't finish her food, she would dump it in Amara's bowl and yell, "Amara is stealing my food." And every time, Amara was punished. That night, after another day of endless work and insults, Amara lay on her thin mat in the storage room. The room smelled of old boxes and dust, but it was the only place she could cry in peace. Outside she could hear laughter, Matilda, George, and Daniela eating fried meat and rice. Her stomach growled, but she hadn't been given dinner. Again. She hugged her knees and whispered, "Why doesn't Papa love me?" The moon shone through the small window, silent. Outside, thunder rumbled. Rain began to pour, just like the storm brewing in Amara's heart. Amara stood by the river, washing clothes under the hot sun. The water reflected her face, high cheekbones, smooth, dark skin, and eyes that shone even when she was sad. At 20, she had grown into the most beautiful girl in Nkwo village, though no one in her house ever said so. "Look at her," women at the market would whisper. "Even in old clothes, she shines like the morning sun." This beauty, however, became Amara's curse. Her life at home became even worse. Matilda hated that she was more beautiful than her daughter, so she became even harsher, whilst Daniela was envious that Amara was receiving more attention from the villagers and bullied her more. Inside the house, Matilda paced like a hungry leopard. "George!" she shouted, slamming her hand on the table. 3 more suitors came for Amara today. 3, and not one has asked about our Daniela." George kept his eyes on his newspaper. "What do you want me to do?" Matilda's eyes burned with anger. "Do! You'll do what I say. That girl is ruining Daniela's future. With her around, no man will ever choose our daughter." Daniela, painting her nails nearby, hissed, "It's not fair. Why do they all want her? Look at me, I'm prettier." She glared at her reflection, though everyone knew the truth. That week, Amara watched helplessly as Matilda destroyed her chances at happiness. When kind-hearted Amika came with gifts, Matilda told him, "Amara steals from us. She can't be trusted." When wealthy Chidi visited, she whispered, "Amara is sick in the head. She talks to herself at night." Each time a suitor left, Amara's heart broke a little more. She'd hear them outside, muttering, "What a shame. Such a beautiful girl with such terrible flaws." One night, Matilda made her move. "Listen to me," Matilda declared. "I have the perfect solution. Amara will marry Victor, the blind potter." Amara, who was cleaning nearby, froze. Victor, the poor blind man who lived alone in the abandoned hut? "No!" she cried, rushing forward. "Papa, please don't do this. I'll work harder. I'll never complain." George wouldn't meet her eyes. "Your mother knows what's best. But he's a stranger. I don't love him." Amara's tears fell like rain. Matilda grabbed her arm, nails digging in. "If you refuse, I'll throw you out tonight. No food, no money, nothing." Daniela clapped her hands, laughing cruelly. "Perfect! A blind beggar for a useless girl." That night, Amara lay awake staring at the moon through cracks in the storage room wall. "Why me?" she wondered. "Did I do something terrible in a past life?" She thought of running away. But where would she go? No family, no money. The village would blame her for disobeying her parents. A single tear rolled down her face. "Maybe this is my fate," she whispered, "to always suffer." The next morning, villagers gathered to watch the sad spectacle. Amara wore a faded white dress, Daniela's old one. No music played. No food was served. Victor stood waiting, his cloudy eyes staring at nothing. His clothes were patched and worn. As the priest joined their hands, Daniela whispered loudly, "Look at the perfect couple, the blind and the worthless." Amara didn't cry. She had no tears left. When the ceremony ended, Matilda shoved a small bundle at her, just 2 dresses and a cracked pot. "Go. You're his problem now." As Amara followed Victor to his tiny hut after the ceremony ended, the villagers' whispers followed her. Such a waste. The beautiful one married to nothing. Life isn't fair. Victor's hut had no proper door, just a cloth hanging. Inside, 1 mat, 1 stool, and darkness. Amara sat in the corner, hugging her knees. This was her life now. But then, Victor spoke softly. "You must be hungry. I saved some yam." He held out a small plate, the only food he had. Amara looked at this strange man, really looked at him for the first time. His face was kind. Something inside her shifted. Maybe, just maybe. The rooster's crow woke Amara before dawn. She blinked in the dim light of the small mud hut, momentarily confused about where she was. Then she remembered. This was her home now. Victor's home. Victor already sat by the fire, his strong hands shaping wet clay into a pot. His blind eyes stared straight ahead, but his fingers moved with perfect precision. "Good morning," he said softly, as if sensing she was awake. "I made tea." Amara stared at the steaming cup near her mat. No one had ever made her tea before. At her father's house, she was always the one serving others. Thank you," she whispered, wrapping her cold fingers around the warm cup. Days passed in this strange new life. Victor was nothing like Amara expected. He never shouted, never hit her. When she cooked, he always said, "Thank you." When she swept, he insisted on helping in his own way, carrying water or preparing clay. One market day, as Amara carried their pots to sell, village women whispered behind her back, "Look at Chief's beautiful daughter now." Auntie Nkechi sneered, "Carrying pots like a commoner." Maybe her beauty wasn't enough to catch a rich husband. Her friend chuckled. Amara's face burned, but she kept walking. The pottery money wasn't enough to sustain them. So Amara started working on other people's farms, weeding, planting, harvesting. Her soft hands blistered and bled, but she never complained. That evening, as Amara washed clothes outside their hut, Laughter rang through the air. "Well, well," Daniela's voice made Amara freeze. Her half-sister stood there in a shiny blue dress, her friend Kate beside her in bright pink. Their perfume smelled like expensive flowers. Daniela looked around the poor hut and smirked. "This is even worse than I imagined." She kicked a clay pot. "This hut is smaller than our bathroom. Do you sleep in the kitchen too?" Amara's hands trembled in the wash water. Kate giggled. "At least she finally has a home that matches her worth." Victor's voice came suddenly from inside the hut. "Amara, come inside, please." His tone was calm, but something in it made Daniela step back. As Amara stood, Daniela hissed, "Enjoy your life with the blind beggar. This is exactly what you deserve." She threw a handful of dirt at Amara's clean washing before flouncing away. Inside, Victor handed Amara a cup of hot tea. "Don't listen to them," he said quietly. Amara nodded, but her eyes burned. Why was life so unfair? That night, Victor gave Amara the biggest piece of fish in their soup. "You work too hard," he said. "Tomorrow, rest. I'll manage the pots." Amara almost laughed. Rest? When had she ever rested? But looking at Victor's kind face, something warm bloomed in her chest. "I'm fine," she said softly. And for the first time, it wasn't entirely a lie. Outside, the moon shone bright over the quiet village. Inside the small hut, two people, one who couldn't see, and one who wished she couldn't feel, found comfort in shared silence. The full moon shone brightly through the small window of their hut. Amara turned in her sleep, her arm reaching out for Victor's warmth, but his side of the mat was empty. She opened her eyes slowly. Victor stood by the window, his tall frame silhouetted by moonlight. But something was different, something terrifying. His eyes. They weren't blank and unfocused like always. They were sharp, clear, staring directly at the moonlit path outside. Amara's breath caught in her throat. She sat up so fast her head spun. "Victor, you can see?" Victor turned quickly. For a long moment they just stared at each other. Amara with wide, shocked eyes, Victor with a guilty expression she'd never seen before because she thought he couldn't see at all. Then he sighed deeply, his shoulders dropping. "Amara, I need to tell you the truth." Victor sat beside her on the mat, his hands clasped tightly. "My real name is Victor Johnson. I'm not poor, not blind." Amara scrambled back until her back hit the mud wall. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure the whole village could hear it. "I came to Unquo village about a year ago." Victor continued, his voice low. "I had nothing with me except the clothes on my back and my pottery skills. Some villagers mocked me. Others, like Mama Ngozi, sometimes gave me food from her farm." Amara remembered how she'd sometimes seen the old woman giving Victor fruits at the market. She'd thought it was charity for a blind man. "Why?" Amara's voice shook. "Why lie to everyone? Why lie to me?" Victor reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Hurt flashed across his face. "Before I came here, I was engaged to a woman in Lagos. She only wanted my money. When I pretended to lose everything in a business deal, she left me the same day. Other women came into my life, but they also left me when they realized I was no longer the wealthy man they wanted." The night air felt suddenly cold. Amara wrapped her arms around herself. "I wanted to find someone who would love me for me," Victor said. "Not for money, not for status, just me." He gestured around their tiny hut. "This version of me." Amara stood up abruptly, pacing the small space. 6 months. 6 months of marriage, of struggling, of being laughed at, all while her husband could see everything. "You let me work like a slave," she hissed, trying to keep her voice down. "You watched me suffer." Victor jumped up. "No, never. I tried to help you every way I could without revealing myself. Did I ever treat you badly? Did I ever let you carry burdens alone?" Amara stopped pacing. Her anger faltered. It was true. Victor had always been kind. When she came home exhausted from farm work, he'd have warm water ready for her feet. When villagers mocked her, he'd whisper comforting words. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I feel so foolish. Victor stepped closer, his hands hovering near her face but not touching. Amara, look at me. Please. When she raised her eyes, his were full of tears too. These past 6 months with you have been the happiest of my life, he said softly. You treated me with kindness no one else ever has. Not when I was rich, and certainly not when they thought I was poor and blind. A sob escaped Amara's lips. All the pain, the confusion, the betrayal swirled inside her like a storm, but through it, one truth remained. Victor had been good to her. Truly good. Victor knelt suddenly in the dirt, taking Amara's hands. I love you, Amara, not because you're beautiful, but because you're kind even when life is cruel. You're strong even when you're broken. Amara fell to her knees too, cutting him off with a tight embrace. She buried her face in his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of clay and firewood. I'm angry, she whispered. But I understand. Victor held her closer. Can you ever forgive me? Amara pulled back just enough to see his face. His real, seeing eyes full of fear and hope. She touched his cheek. Yes. Victor pulled her into a warm embrace. Amara rested her head against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. For the first time in her life, she felt truly wanted. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the horizon, painting the sky in hopeful shades of orange and pink. A new day was beginning, for both of them. Victor took Amara to Lagos City, revealing his empire, skyscrapers, luxury cars, businesses, penthouse private jets. The moment they stepped off the private plane, Amara's legs trembled. The city noise, the shiny cars waiting for them, the bodyguards in black suits. It was too much. All this is yours now, Victor whispered in her ear as they rode in a car with seats softer than any bed Amara had ever slept on. Amara pressed her face against the window, watching tall buildings flash by. This feels like a dream, she said. Victor squeezed her hand. It's just the beginning. For 2 weeks, Victor showed Amara his world. They ate in restaurants where the plates looked like art. He bought her dresses that made her feel like a princess. At night, they sat on his penthouse balcony, looking at city lights while sharing stories. One evening, as servants cleared their dinner table, Amara grew quiet. What's wrong? Victor asked. Amara played with her gold necklace. We need to go back to the village. Victor raised an eyebrow. Why? I need them to see me, Amara said, her voice firm. I need them to know they didn't break me. Back in Nkwo village, news spread fast when Victor's convoy of black cars rolled into town. Children ran after them, shouting excitedly. Market women abandoned their stalls to stare. Victor had turned the village square into a party venue. Colourful tents covered tables loaded with food, fried rice, grilled fish, even cakes iced in colours no one had seen before. A live band played high-life music while waiters served drinks in real glasses. When Amara stepped out of the car in a beautiful dress, diamonds sparkling at her neck, the crowd gasped. Is that Amara? People whispered. Matilda, Daniela, and George arrived last, pushed forward by curious neighbours. Daniela's mouth fell open when she saw Amara's jewellery. No way those diamonds are real, Daniela hissed. Victor stepped forward, his voice booming across the square. Welcome, everyone. Especially those who laughed when my wife married a poor blind man. Matilda's face twisted in anger. This is a trick. How can a blind beggar afford all this? Victor smiled and pulled out a magazine. Victor Johnson, CEO of Johnson Industries. The village chief nearly choked. The billionaire from television? George's hands shook as he looked at his daughter, her confident smile, her proud posture. This wasn't the broken girl they'd thrown away. Amara. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Amara's chest tightened. Part of her wanted to scream at him. Another part remembered the little girl who just wanted her father's love. I forgive you, she said quietly. But we will never be family again. Daniela suddenly lunged forward. You don't deserve this. That should be me. Her once expensive dress now looked cheap compared to Amara's elegance. Victor blocked her path. The only reason you're not in jail for how you treated Amara is because she's kind. He turned to the crowd. From today, no one from this family comes near my wife. As music filled the air, Amara watched her stepfamily being led away. Matilda kept looking back, not at Amara, but at the wealth around them, her face twisted with jealousy. This only happened because I made her marry you, Matilda muttered bitterly. Victor wrapped his arms around Amara as fireworks lit up the night sky. For the first time, Amara felt truly at peace. Days passed after the grand revelation, and Matilda was feeling bitter about Amara's fortune. Daniela, too, could not accept that Amara, whom she had always considered to be beneath her, has now become the wife of a billionaire. However, disaster soon struck. The fire started at midnight. By dawn, George's entire plantation, the one that had fed his family for generations, was nothing but blackened earth and smoking ruins. George stood staring at the destruction, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Then, without warning, he collapsed face first into the ash. Papa! Daniela screamed as she and Matilda rushed to him, but George couldn't move his right side. His mouth hung slack, drool dripping down his chin. The village doctor confirmed what they feared. The shock had given him a stroke. Things became difficult for them after George became an invalid. Matilda and Daniela did not have any skills they could rely on. So, they had to sell their big house and move into a small mud hut in the village. They used some of the money to settle the workers that had worked on the plantation, and used the rest for George's medicines and their upkeep. However, this was not enough to sustain them. 3 months later, the once proud Matilda now knelt in the dirt of Mama Ngozi's farm, her once soft hands blistered from hours of weeding. Beside her, Daniela sniffled as she carried heavy buckets of water under the hot sun. Faster! Mama Ngozi clapped her hands. I'm not paying you to cry! Daniela wiped her face, leaving muddy streaks. Just months ago, she'd been the one mocking farm workers. Now she was one of them. At the market, her former friends pointed and laughed. Look at Chief's daughter now, they taunted. From riches to rags. Daniela kept her head down, remembering how she'd said those exact words to Amara. That night, Matilda counted their meager earnings. Not enough for food and George's medicine. There's only one way, Matilda said heavily. You must marry Farmer Chaik. Daniela's head snapped up. That old man? He's 50 years old. Matilda's voice was tired. He's offered 3 bags of rice and medical care for your father. We have no choice. The wedding was a pitiful affair. No music, no feast. Just Daniela in a borrowed dress, marrying a man old enough to be her father. As she moved into his mud hut, she finally understood Amara's pain. Meanwhile, in Lagos City, Amara stood before a cathedral filled with roses, wearing a white dress that sparkled like diamonds. Victor waited at the altar, his eyes full of love as they renewed their vows properly, not as a poor blind man and mistreated girl, but as equals deeply in love. I now pronounce you husband and wife, again, the pastor joked as the crowd cheered. Later, as fireworks lit up the night sky, Victor whispered, Are you happy, my love? Amara looked around at their beautiful life, the luxury, the love, the peace. I never knew life could be like this, she admitted. 5 years later, Amara laughed as her 3 children played in their mansion's garden. 2 boys and a girl, all with her bright eyes and Victor's strong nose. Back in the village, Matilda wiped George's drool while listening to Daniela complain about Farmer Cheek's snoring. As the sun set, both women, separated by fortune and choices, thought the same thing. If only they'd been kinder. If only they'd seen Amara's worth. If only... But it was too late. But for Amara, that painful past was now just a story she sometimes told her children at bedtime, one with a very happy ending. This story teaches us that kindness and humility lead to true happiness, while cruelty brings its own punishment. Never judge by appearances, as blessings often come disguised as challenges.